The Simpsons have done it again, predicting events in the future, this time on the hit show Game of Thrones, 2 years in advance.
Look, the dragon is burning our village.
So this scene from The Simpsons showed a dragon burning down a town. It looked eerily similar.
This morning, the firestorm officials had feared becoming a reality, with a third out-of-control wildfire exploding overnight in the Los Angeles area.
Brace yourself for a wild trip through Springfield's strangest visions. Some people say The Simpsons can peek into the future, and their predictions for 2025 are downright nuts. From sleek flying cars zooming through the clouds to a never-before-seen water engine that might flip the whole energy industry on its head.
We've all heard of hydrogen being the next big thing in the propulsion business, but there still are issues around it. And some crazy folks have gone on to make engines that run on water.
These ideas no longer feel like distant science fiction. If you thought the show's earlier predictions, like smartwatches or Disney buying Fox, were shocking, wait until you see how weirdly on point things could get by 2025. The Game of Thrones fiery finale. In 2017, The Simpsons aired The Surfsons, a medieval fantasy spoof that parodied shows like Game of Thrones. The plot includes a resurrected dragon that ends up wreaking havoc by breathing fire all over Springfield's fantasy version. 2 years later, the Game of Thrones episode The Bells aired in 2019, stunning viewers as Daenerys Targaryen and her dragon Drogon laid waste to King's Landing, incinerating buildings and innocent residents alike. Fans of The Simpsons quickly noted the parallels, a fearsome dragon unleashing fiery destruction on a crowded city.
The soothsayers at The Simpsons have done it again. This time, they correctly predicted the ending to the most recent episode of Game of Thrones.
Did this episode of The Simpsons from 2017 predict last Sunday's Game of Thrones? Look at the Game of Thrones scene. Pretty eerie.
Although the cartoon version was overshadowed by comedic bits and over-the-top jokes, it still looked uncannily similar to what HBO viewers experienced, minus the brutality and heartbreak that Game of Thrones showcased. This led many watchers to joke that The Simpsons had done it again, predicting a major plot twist for one of the biggest TV shows in modern history. Is it a true prediction, or just comedic timing? Probably the latter. Dragons destroying towns is hardly unique to high fantasy, but the closeness in visuals and the timing left an impression. With new fantasy epics on the horizon, like expansions of The Lord of the Rings or other big properties, maybe The Simpsons will produce more comedic parodies. Then, when those shows deliver shocking twists that mirror the spoof, fans can once again cry out, "They predicted it!" Voting machine glitches. Treehouse of Horror 19th aired in 2008, might not sound like a standard Simpsons prediction episode, but it contains a short storyline about misleading voting machines. In the segment, Homer enters a booth to vote for Barack Obama in the presidential election.
Man, not another election. Why do we have to choose our leaders? Isn't that what we have the Supreme Court for?
Yet each time he presses Obama's name, the machine registers a vote for John McCain. Eventually, the contraption goes haywire and even attacks Homer, devouring him in a comedic twist. 4 years later, during the 2012 election, video footage circulated online showing a voting machine in Pennsylvania switching a voter's selection from Obama to Mitt Romney. It was swiftly addressed, but the clip spooked many, who drew parallels to that Simpsons gag. Fans were amazed by just how close the scenario in The Simpsons had been to real events. Why mention this going into 2025? Electronic voting remains a hot-button issue, especially when it comes to security concerns and potential tech flaws. As technology grows more central to elections around the globe, the comedic scenario from The Simpsons resonates as a cautionary tale about trusting technology too much without robust safeguards. While no one expects machines to literally eat voters, the underlying theme, software glitches can subvert voter intention, is definitely relevant. If future elections roll out new forms of remote or electronic voting, the image of Homer battling his machine might continue to pop up in memes. It's a reminder that The Simpsons draws humor from everyday anxieties, and sometimes those jokes become real enough to spark public debate. Whether or not that's a prediction, it's a testament to how the show's comedic exaggerations can ring uncomfortably true. Lady Gaga's high-flying show. In the 2012 episode Lisa Goes Gaga, the pop star Lady Gaga visits Springfield in a glittery silver outfit, performing an over-the-top show that includes her flying above the crowd using cables. The storyline is classic Simpsons parody. They exaggerate Gaga's flamboyant style, edgy costumes, and shock factor performances to comedic extremes, having her reassure Lisa and others about self-confidence along the way. Then came the 2017 Super Bowl Lie halftime show. Lady Gaga opened her set by standing atop Houston's NRG Stadium roof in a metallic outfit, harnessed to cables.
Did Lady Gaga get her inspiration for her Super Bowl halftime show from, of all things, The Simpsons? With uncanny accuracy, 4 years ago, the show actually predicted she'd fly through the air. Just look at the similarities from the 2012 episode.
Moments later, she dropped into the stadium, effectively soaring above the live audience and millions watching on TV. Fans instantly drew comparisons to the Simpsons sequence, marveling at how the cartoon episode came within a hair's breadth of capturing the look and feel of Gaga's real act. Is that strong predictive power, or just a reflection of Gaga's known flair for dramatic entrances? The answer is likely simpler. The Simpsons writers clearly recognized Gaga's brand: outrageous clothing, big entrances, and theatrical stunts. Trump becoming president. Arguably, the most famous Simpsons prediction is Donald Trump's presidency, and now that prediction has come full circle. In the 2000 episode, Bart to the Future, the show pictured a future where an adult Bart struggled to get his life together, while Lisa, the unlikely president, inherited a massive budget crisis left behind by President Trump. At the time, it seemed absurd that Trump, the flashy real estate mogul and TV personality, could ever lead the nation. 16 years later, Trump shocked the world by winning the 2016 election, and that zany Simpsons moment became a pop culture touchstone. Fast forward to 2024, and reality has once again verified the Simpsons' uncanny foresight. Trump has now won a second term in the White House by defeating Kamala Harris. In many ways, his return to the Oval Office cements his status as an unpredictable political force, a storyline that echoes the show's original offhand joke. The Simpsons writers had fun tossing quick nods like Trump 2024 into later episodes, as if hinting that the show's quirky vision of politics was preordained. Now that Trump has secured a second term, his renewed presidency has kept the debate alive among both critics and fans alike. His supporters cheer his bold promises to revive a fiercely nationalistic and economically driven agenda, while his opponents worry that history may simply repeat itself. In either case, the fact that one of the biggest pop culture phenomena can mirror real-life twists so precisely is remarkable. The Simpsons never set out to be a crystal ball. They simply used humor to magnify the absurdities of the world. Flying car frenzy. When it comes to The Simpsons imagining wild transportation, Future Drama is one of the most iconic episodes. Airing in 2005, it projects Bart and Lisa into a future where advanced technology is everywhere, including personal flying cars. The episode shows a chaotic sky filled with cars that zip between tall buildings and swirl around in futuristic traffic jams. At the time, viewers found it funny to see Springfield's roads shift to mid-air collisions, but now, the concept of flying cars doesn't feel so far-fetched. Several companies across the world are racing to develop eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
Flying cars might be taking off sooner than you think. An aviation company based here in the U.S. is pushing it one step closer after receiving a special airworthiness certification from the Federal Aviation Administration.
These machines function somewhat like large drones or mini helicopters. They aim to whisk people over gridlocked roads, giving new meaning to the idea of a daily commute. Early prototypes have carried passengers successfully, and some organizations predict we might see the first commercial operations within a few years. Of course, big questions remain, like how to handle safety, air traffic control, weather, and cost. While the real future may not bring comedic mid-air fender benders, the Future Drama version highlights how everyday mishaps can follow us wherever we go, even if we trade roads for skies. By 2025, it's possible that certain test cities, or smaller flight corridors, will start letting passengers hail an air taxi via an app on their phone. If that happens, you can bet the Simpsons fans will look back at Future Drama and say, "They predicted it again." skyward taxis, and beyond. Though Bart to the Future is more famous for its reference to President Trump, the episode also has a quick sight gag involving airborne taxis. In a flash forward to Bart's adulthood, we see vehicles floating above the ground as if it's no big deal. This subtle background detail suggests a future so advanced that nobody even blinks at flying cabs. Bart is more concerned about jam sessions and slacking off than the radical transformation of public transport. Fast forward to the mid-2020s, and talk of air taxis has moved from wild speculation to genuine possibility. Companies like Joby Aviation, Volocopter, and others are testing short-range flights that could shuttle a few people at a time. These prototypes aim to reduce city congestion and trim the hours we spend stuck on roads. By 2025, we might witness pilot programs in select cities, maybe watching these craft whisk travelers between specially designated skyports near major highways or busy train stations. If that day comes, the comedic images from Bart to the Future could feel a lot more real. Instead of searching for cabs on city streets, some passengers might look up to see if their ride is descending from above. Of course, The Simpsons' comedic approach casts such a future in a chaotic light. In the show, gadgets rarely work quite as planned, and Springfield's incompetent officials don't exactly enforce safety. But in the real world, regulators have to ensure that air taxis maintain squeaky clean safety records before widespread adoption. The water engine rumors. One of the strangest predictions that fans talk about is The Simpsons referencing a water-powered engine. While there isn't an officially aired episode showing Lisa inventing such a device, the rumored script is often called Lisa the Inventor online, but no full episode with that title exists in the show's canon. Stories persist that an early 2000s draft once hinted Lisa created a breakthrough water engine. Allegedly, Mr. Burns buys the patent, only to bury it to protect his fossil fuel interests. Though the rumor remains unverified, some fans argue it's a myth or an internet hoax. There's an interesting overlap with real global conversations. Scientists have worked for decades on hydrogen fuel cells and other methods to glean power from water. While a pure water engine sounds magical, real hydrogen-based energy is indeed possible. We can split water into hydrogen and oxygen, then use hydrogen as a clean-burning fuel.
Clean-burning hydrogen might just be the fix the world is looking for, and Canada is ready to deal. Considered a clean fuel because when it burns, hydrogen leaves only water behind.
The big barriers are cost, infrastructure, and ensuring the process itself is environmentally friendly. If, by 2025, hydrogen or water-based fuel technology surges forward, fans of the rumored Lisa the Inventor script might cite it as yet another bizarre instance of life imitating Springfield. Even though there's no confirmed snippet of the show capturing that exact scene, you can easily imagine Lisa, the environmentally conscious brainiac, exploring alternative energy. Mr. Burns, meanwhile, would do anything to keep his nuclear or fossil fuel empire intact. Hints of water-based power. Although not explicitly about a water engine, The Simpsons has toyed with comedic references to alternative energy in episodes like The Old Man and the Sea Student. In one throwaway line, Mr. Burns scoffs at any research into water-based power. He dismisses it as a waste of resources, unless it can be monetized heavily. This joke, though brief, resonates with the show's consistent portrayal of Burns, a greedy mogul who'd rather invest in polluting industries than greener solutions. In the real world, water-based power isn't just about hydrogen fuel cells. It includes hydropower, tidal energy, and wave energy. By 2025, we might see more widespread adoption of these technologies as part of global efforts to reduce carbon emissions. Some coastal areas are already experimenting with generators placed offshore to harness wave motion. Tidal plants exist in countries like France and South Korea, capturing the predictable shifts in sea level. Fans who revisit scenes like Mr. Burns mocking water power can't help but note how The Simpsons often frames him as an avatar of outdated business practices. The comedic tension lies in how Burns tries to crush any green initiative that might trim his profits. And that's exactly the kind of corporate suspicion many activists express today. If, in the next few years, water-based solutions become mainstream or cost-effective enough to threaten old-school energy giants, it would mirror that Simpsons exchange, a shift that stirs both excitement and fierce pushback. Whether or not a cartoon line from over 2 decades ago truly predicted anything, it underscores that the Simpsons' comedic lens can highlight real-world possibilities. Disney buys Fox. Moving away from futuristic engines, let's jump to one of the most jaw-dropping real-life confirmations of a Simpsons gag: Disney's acquisition of 21st Century Fox. In the 1998 episode, When You Dish Upon a Star, we catch a quick glimpse of the 20th Century Fox sign labeled, "A division of Walt Disney Company." It was presumably a silly throwaway joke about Disney gobbling up every entertainment asset on Earth. No one at the time imagined such a corporate union could actually happen. But that's exactly what transpired in 2019.
680's Richard Southern joins us now. And Richard, it's a massive deal that reshapes the entertainment biz. So Disney is buying a big chunk of Fox.
Disney officially purchased 21st Century Fox for a massive sum, bringing The Simpsons itself under the same mouse-eared umbrella as Mickey, Marvel, and Star Wars. Overnight, the satirical sign from that old episode became an eerie callback. Fans were stunned. A comedic reference so random turned out to be spot on. Media consolidation accelerates each year, with big players merging or acquiring smaller ones. Disney's expansion could continue, or new competitors might rise, further changing how we watch TV and film. The synergy between The Simpsons and Disney Plus is already strong, with all seasons streaming in one place. Zombie apocalypse. Finally, let's end on one of the more outlandish Simpsons storylines: the zombie apocalypse from Treehouse of Horror XX. In that episode, Springfield succumbs to a plague triggered by bad meat called Burger 2, derived from cannibalistic cows. Kent Brockman takes a bite and rapidly turns into a zombie, infecting others and throwing the town into chaos. Bart, oddly enough, displays immunity, while the rest of Springfield degenerates into flesh-eating ghouls. While a literal zombie apocalypse still belongs in the realm of fiction, the comedic message about food safety is not so far-fetched. Real-world outbreaks of E. coli, salmonella, and other contaminants occasionally pop up, reminding us that supply chains can be fragile. In late 2019 and 2020, discussions around pandemics, especially as COVID-19 spread, brought renewed attention to how quickly an infection can circle the globe. Though not a reanimated corpse scenario, the speed and scope of a viral outbreak can indeed feel apocalyptic. By 2025, we might see heightened food safety regulations, or advanced lab-grown meats minimizing contamination risks. The comedic Simpsons spin, however, suggests that society often bungles its preparedness. If anything, Treehouse of Horror XX is a comedic note on how overconfidence in mass-produced food can lead to bizarre, disastrous outcomes. The show is always quick to lampoon official competence, implying that if a real crisis hits, Springfield's leadership might not keep it together. In reality, we haven't reached zombie territory, but repeated headlines about new variants or health scares keep underscoring how quickly life can change. The Simpsons packaged that fear in a comedic wrapper, showing that behind the laughs, there's a kernel of truth about how we respond to emergencies. In 2025, if we see bigger steps towards safe, transparent food production, The Simpsons' cautionary tale about Burger 2 might have done its small part in raising awareness, through humor, long before. 10 young hikers set off into the icy Siberian wilderness, but they never came back. Their bodies were found in strange ways, and this became one of the greatest mysteries in history, called the Dyatlov Pass incident. For years, people believed an avalanche was to blame, but new evidence suggests otherwise. Yuri Yudin, the only survivor, has finally broken his silence and given answers that just solved this mystery. What really happened to his friends that fateful night? Join us as we let you in on Yuri Yudin's revelations about the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. The sole survivor of the Dyatlov mystery speaks out. Yuri Yudin was the only one who survived the Dyatlov Pass tragedy of 1959, but it wasn't because of luck or skill. It was because of illness. He had set off on the journey with 9 of his closest friends, all excited for their hiking trip into the freezing Siberian wilderness. The group was full of energy, ready to conquer the harsh conditions of the Ural Mountains. They laughed, shared stories, and planned every step of the trip. Yuri had no reason to believe he would never see them again. Early into the journey, Yuri started feeling sick. He fell ill with severe pain caused by rheumatism and a congenital heart condition. The group encouraged him to rest, but Yuri didn't want to leave them.
Right above the tent and surprised them while they were sleeping. Some of them got injured, and they had to cut the tent from the inside to escape. And without appropriate clothes, it was impossible for them to survive with these extreme weather conditions, especially because they didn't want to leave their injured friends behind.
He felt guilty even thinking about it. They were his friends, and they had planned this trip together, but the pain became too much to ignore. Eventually, Yuri had no choice but to turn back. He said goodbye to the group, thinking he would rejoin them later or see them once they returned. What later happened to the 9 hikers, and what did Yuri Yuldin, the sole survivor, have to say after the tragedy? Well, keep watching because you're about to find out. Yuri never imagined that leaving his friends would be the last time he would ever see them alive. When news of the tragedy broke out and reached Yuri, he could not believe it. His friends were dead. The strong, capable hikers he had shared so much with were gone. At first, no one knew what had happened to them. Search teams found their bodies in the snow, scattered and broken in strange ways. Some were missing their clothes, others had injuries that were difficult to explain. Their tent had been ripped open from the inside, as if they had been trying to escape something in the middle of the night. Yuri felt a wave of shock and guilt. He had survived by chance, but why? He thought about how close he had been to dying with them. If he hadn't fallen ill, he would have stayed with the group and shared their terrible fate. Yuri often said he felt like fate had chosen him, but he didn't understand why. Instead of feeling lucky, he felt burdened. As time passed, theories about what happened to his friends began to spread. The official explanation was an avalanche. Authorities said the group had panicked and ran from their tent, but Yuri didn't believe it. Yuri would later open up and speak about the tragedy. He spoke often about the deep pain he felt after learning about his friends' mysterious deaths. He described his group as strong, intelligent, and experienced hikers who would not have panicked easily. Yuri could not accept the simple explanation of an avalanche, as the official report claimed. To him, the strange details surrounding their deaths didn't add up. Their tent had been torn open from the inside, as if they were desperately trying to escape. Bodies were found far from the camp, some with severe injuries like broken ribs and skull fractures that didn't match what an avalanche would cause.
The cause of death for all the victims was determined to be hypothermia, but Rustem and Nicholas also had severely crushed skulls. And Ludmila and Alexander Zolotarev had a number of broken ribs.
Others were missing clothes, despite the freezing temperatures. Yuri often questioned what had really happened on that dark, cold night. He said his friends must have faced something terrifying to make them leave their tent so suddenly. He imagined what his friends had felt during their final moments. Were they scared? Did they know what was happening? These questions followed him every day. He spent his life searching for answers, but they never came. For Yuri, surviving while his friends died was a heavy burden. He often said he felt as if fate had spared him for some unknown reason, but it brought him no peace. Their loss haunted him, so Yuri longed for the truth, believing his friends deserved justice and answers that the world still could not give. To understand Yuri's pain and story, we have to find out what exactly really happened to the 9 hikers. Stay tuned because what happened next will shock you. What really happened in the Dyatlov Pass incident? When a group of 10 experienced hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out on a challenging expedition through the Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union, they never expected to meet their end. The team, mostly students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, had one goal: to earn the highest hiking certification, which is grade 3. To achieve this, they needed to complete a 300-kilometer trek across rough and frozen terrain. All members of the group were well prepared, holding grade 2 certificates and having solid experience in skiing and hiking trips. On January 25, 1959, the group started their journey from the town of Ivdel, fully equipped for the harsh weather ahead. But shortly after starting, one member, Yuri Yudin, fell ill. Reluctantly, he turned back on January 28, not realizing this decision would save his life. The remaining 9 hikers, who were Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Yuri Doroshenko, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Yuri Krivonashenko, continued their journey, unaware of the tragic fate that awaited them. The group pushed forward, facing freezing temperatures and rough terrain. On January 31st, they reached a valley that led to what would later be called Dyatlov Pass. They set up camp and prepared for their next ascent, but a heavy snowstorm caused them to veer off their planned route, leading them to the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, which means dead mountain in the local Mansi language.
After losing their way during a snowstorm, they set up camp on what is known as Kholat Syakhl, which translates to dead mountain.
Despite the brutal conditions, the group pressed on, determined to complete their journey. As night fell, they set up their tent on an exposed slope. Winds and temperatures that dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. What happened next remains one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. When the group failed to return on schedule, their families grew worried and search teams were sent out. On February 26th, searchers found the group's tent, and the scene was chilling. The tent was damaged, partially collapsed, and covered in snow. It had been cut open from the inside, as though the hikers had desperately tried to escape. Even more confusing was that their shoes, clothing, and equipment were neatly left behind. Inside the tent, rescuers found food that had been partially cooked, as though the group had been interrupted suddenly. The search teams followed tracks leading away from the tent. About 300 meters away, near a small fire, they found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonashenko. Both were dressed only in their underwear and socks, which was strange, given the freezing temperatures of -25 degrees Celsius to -30 degrees Celsius. Doroshenko had burns on his body, and Krivonashenko had bitten a piece of flesh from his hand, likely out of pain or desperation. A few days later, 3 more bodies were found, Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. They were discovered in positions that suggested they had been trying to return to the tent. Like the first 2, they had little clothing on and had died from hypothermia. Slobodin, on the other hand, had a minor skull fracture, although it wasn't fatal. The mystery worsened when the last 4 bodies were found in May, buried under several meters of snow in a ravine farther from the tent. Their injuries were far more severe. Nikolai Thibault Brignol had a fractured skull. Lyudmila Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest fractures, injuries so intense they were compared to the force of a car crash, but there were no external wounds on their bodies, which made the injuries even more unusual. Dubinina's body was also missing her tongue, eyes, lips, and part of her facial tissue. Some of the others were also missing their eyes and eyebrows, though forensic experts later said these injuries might have been caused by water in a nearby stream. The investigation raised more questions than answers. The Soviet authorities officially concluded that 6 of the hikers had died from hypothermia and 3 from fatal injuries, but they found no evidence of outside involvement. Because of how mysterious it had gotten, many theories about what happened to the hikers began to emerge. Keep watching to find out what exactly are the different theories. Theories surrounding the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. Being one of Theos's mysterious incidents in modern history, many theories have been put forward over the years to explain what happened to the 9 hikers. The official report concluded that an avalanche was to blame, but not everyone agrees with this explanation. According to the avalanche theory, the group's tent was buried by snow that came sliding down the slope during the night. This forced the hikers to cut their way out of the tent and flee into the freezing cold without proper clothing. Investigators believed the group became disoriented in the darkness and freezing temperatures, eventually succumbing to hypothermia. While this theory seemed logical at first, many experts argued that the slope wasn't steep enough for a real avalanche. The tent was also still partially standing, and the group's belongings inside were undisturbed, which would not happen in a typical avalanche. Another early idea was that the local Mansi tribe had attacked the hikers. The Mansi people lived near the area. What are your thoughts about the Dyatlov Pass incident? Let us know in the comments section below. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click on the next video displayed on your screen. You will enjoy it.